Hi witches. So today's topic comes from another wonderful Instagram follower of mine, and thank you so much for suggesting it. I have left their social media below. Today I'm going to walk you through the basics of altar building. Tomorrow we're going to go through how to build a deity altar. I'm very excited for that video. And then the following day we're going to go over how to build a non-denominational altar, because I know not all witches who are watching me are deity working witches, and that's totally cool. I just want to make sure I cater to both sides, because I feel like there's this misconception that like in order to be a witch you have to work with the gods, and you don't. That's not a thing. So yes, for today I wanted to go over the general anatomy of like what goes into a potential witch's altar. Now this is not me saying that you have to have all of this stuff in order to like be a witch, or like in order to have a complete altar. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just some tools that like I personally use and a lot of witches use in general, like in order to build their altars. So yeah, the first thing that you're gonna need is the actual altar itself. Now this can be a table, it can be a shelf, it could be a box, a window pane, just a flat surface of any kind. If that's not possible, maybe just like even a cloth of some kind where you put your items on the ground. I've seen people making natural altars out of stones, which is really beautiful, like out in nature and stuff. And I'm like, I want that. Like one day I will have a beautiful stone altar and it's going to be awesome. But I, like one of the things that I have for my altar, I have protective symbols carved underneath it. So I've carved in protective sigils and stuff to keep it safe, which is just something that I personally do. You don't have to, but I do think that is like a cool way to like enchant just a mundane piece of furniture and consecrate it as an altar. That also works for shelves and boxes. Maybe not so much window panes, especially if you're renting. Like don't maybe carve witch symbols into your house. Do you have a house? And when I own a house, I really want like window panes with like inlaid wood sigils on them. I just think that would be really cool. So not expensive at all. Like what am I talking about, right? But anyways, I think that like the first thing that you're gonna need for an altar and you're ready to create an altar is just a flat surface. Again, I know people who have like altars on their dresser. I have like a ton of altars around my house. I have like 1, 2, 3 in this room right now. Four in this room right now, and they're all like different. They all look really different. So it can look however you want it to look, is what I'm trying to say. It can be wherever you want it to be. Next thing that a lot of witches have is an altar cloth. Now I do not, because I drip wax on my altar cloth. Like I used to have an altar cloth, it was covered in wax and it just made me sad and it like ruined the cloth. So I tend to keep mine without a cloth, so that way I can just like wash it and like get all the wax, like melt the wax and like wipe it up. Which somebody who like watches my videos recommended to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. Like why didn't I think of that before? That's so smart. Just instead of me sitting there like trying to scratch wax off my altar, just get a hairdryer, melt it and wipe it up. So smart, so smart. But yeah, that's why I don't have an altar cloth. Occasionally, like if it is for a holiday, I will put an altar cloth on there. I think if you saw my like Midsummer Letha one, or altar video, then you would have seen like an altar cloth for the group ritual that we did. I did like it. I think it looks really beautiful, don't get me wrong, and I would love to have like an actual, I think like I will have an altar with an altar cloth on it, but as of right now, I don't. This is something cool that if you are kind of artsy, you can DIY, especially if you know how to sew. I have this concept. I think like in my shop, I kind of want to make like a couple altar cloths just to see how they go, and see if people like them, because I don't know if they will. But I have some ideas. So anyways, that more to come on that. The next thing that a lot of people have on their altars is an incense holder or an oil diffuser. So we did talk about like smoke cleansing and the use of incense, dry incense, during our Air Magic series. If you are interested in that, go check it out. But that is definitely like something that you can incorporate onto your altar. I usually have some. I was burning incense in the bedroom yesterday, because I was like meditating. So mine's in there currently, but it usually sits like right here on my altar. The next thing are going to be candles. Like I feel like candles are just a very witchy thing. They definitely set the mood and make things a little bit more mystical. But specifically deity candles are used on altars all the time. Right now, this altar is completely dedicated to Hecate, who is now asking me to, so I'm building like multiple deity altars, one for each one of my deities. I believe this table is actually going to be moved completely, and I'm going to get like another altar that like spans this window, specifically for Hecate, and then 2 more on either side for each of the 4 of my other deities. So I hope that makes sense, which is a big undertaking, and I'm slowly amassing furniture. This one I think is going to go in the corner of that room. I'm redoing my witch room. It's going to be really cool, but I think that this is going to be specifically to hold my Book of Shadows, and I'm very excited for that. So yes, that was a really long tangent. Deity candles can be used on your altar. This is my current one for Hecate, and I will show you guys how I am kind of redesigning this for Hecate tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Deity candles, candles of all kinds, are great for using on your altar. I really like them. I recommend using them, and with that being said, just be sure that you are being safe, because fire can be really destructive, so just be careful. The next thing I wanted to talk about is using items from nature. So on my altar, I have a snake skin from my snake, because serpents are one of the sacred animals of Hecate. So I arguably, I'm probably gonna get a different jar. This is a tomato sauce jar, but it fit really well. I spray painted the top black because I am just goth AF, but you can see I am just kind of a scavenger. So this is just skin, and it was an offering to her. So anytime he sheds, it's going to be an offering to her that I will put on her altar. Next thing I wanted to talk about are altar tiles, which is something that I will be getting for my Hecatean altar as well. I'm very excited about this, but basically altar tiles are pretty much what they sound like. They are either like stone or wood or ceramic, like tiles, maybe about that big, circular, square, just up to the design that you get. I hope to find like a circular one with a cool maze on it for Hecate. But they can be made out of, they can be made out of anything. It's usually a natural material, and that is used to focus your energy on a specific idea or concept or deity, or I know a lot of people have a pentacle one, like that is kind of their representation of the element of the earth, or the suit of pentacles in the tarot as well. You'll see a lot of that, and that is just to kind of focus your energy on, or be a place of energy for charging things, for consecrating items, stuff like that. So another thing that I would really like to get, maybe this will be like my crystal and like Book of Shadows altar. Yeah, I think that would be cool. I saw this really cool selenite like crystal charging disc, or like crystal cleansing disc, like at a local metaphysical store, and it had like a pentacle on it. It was like very cool. It was like that big, and I should have gotten it, but I didn't, because I was like, you don't deserve it, but I do deserve it. But that is also a really cool option that I've seen kind of floating around, and I plan on getting. So if you are interested in that, or if you are interested in crystals, definitely check it out. They have a bunch with like different designs on them. So it's just cool, and it's like a cool thing to have on your altar. The next thing you might see on a witch's altar is their Book of Shadows. So if you guys are unfamiliar, a Book of Shadows is where a witch writes down their spells, their feelings. It's basically a really fancy magical journal. Now mine is going to be kind of more of a grimoire, I think. I keep calling it my Book of Shadows. I've just called it that for 11 years, but it's going to be full of information. I like books of shadows that are a little bit of both, where it's like, here's the information on one page, and here's what I did, and here's how I felt about it at this point in time in my life. And I think that's really, really cool. So if you are working on your Book of Shadows, don't worry, you could have kind of like a combo of both. Mine have always been that way. They've always been partially grimoire, partially Book of Shadows, like journally reflecting stuff. So yeah, that is like really completely up to you in terms of like how you want to structure your Book of Shadows. But a lot of witches, I don't keep my Book of Shadows on here. I've kind of like started doing things more digitally and like keeping notes in my phone for right now, until I find the actual notebook that I'm going to use. I know I said I was going to go to the Renaissance Fair in September, but I'm going to be going in October actually to celebrate my birthday. So I'm very excited about that, and hopefully we'll be able to find a Book of Shadows at the Renaissance Festival. So anyways, yes, so a Book of Shadows is kind of like a sacred text, I would say, to witches specifically. I don't see people like putting all of their books on their altars all the time. They usually have a separate shelf, which I can't wait to have a completely witchy shelf for my books. I'm so excited. Or just a witchy shelf just full of books. Yes, the dream. Yes, a lot of people do keep their actual Book of Shadows on their altars to like keep it safe or like keep it as a focal point, which I think is really cool. Another thing that you might find on a witch's altar are their divinatory tools. So that could be tarot decks, oracle decks, pendulums, crystal balls, scrying mirrors, all kinds of stuff like that. So definitely if you have those items and you want to put them on your altar, that is a-okay. That's super cool. And it's a good way to, like if you have an altar in a window like I do, you can charge things in the moonlight. Just be careful if you do. I left my tarot card sitting in a sunny window for like a year, and the top card, like I didn't touch it for a while, and the top card got like really faded, and I was like, oh no. This is like a couple years ago, so just be careful. It didn't really do anything to the card, but like the top of it is definitely like sun bleached, so just be careful with that. Also, some crystals you aren't really supposed to leave in sunlight. They can drain the color or change the color, so again, just be careful. That's why I don't really keep a whole lot of crystals on this altar, just because there's so many windows in this room. But yeah, you can totally keep all of that on your altar. It's very creepy and cool looking when you have a big crystal ball. Like I've always wanted one, so I'm on the hunt. But yes, I want like an obsidian one, or like some sort of like onyx one, where it's just like the Orthanc, or not the Orthanc, the Palantir from Lord of the Rings. Oh, it'd be so cool. And then like an actual, I'm on the hunt, so if I find one, I will let you guys know. But yes. The next thing that you might see is an offering dish, an offering bowl, or a chalice or cup. And that can just be, especially, that's really used a lot more for, I feel like, deity working witches. Conversely, you do see witches who don't practice deity work with items like that on their altar too. So it's completely up to your preference. It can be a great way, especially if you are ingesting food or like imbibing with sacred wine during a ritual to celebrate a holiday or any other type of ritual. That's totally cool. I have certain things that I only use for magical workings. So I have like my sacred chalice here, which I don't know if you can see. It's just very simple. I actually got this when I was like 10 years old when we went to Jamestown, but I thought it was very cool and I really like it. So there's that. And then I also have like a silver offering dish there for Hecate full of garlic, because that's one of her sacred plants. And eventually I think I will be moving that and using it for the Morrigan, actually, because I see the Morrigan is more of a silver, like she gives me silver energy, whereas Hecate is more like gold. I don't know how to explain that, but yes. The next thing that you might see on primarily Wiccan altars, but altars of any kind, is the bell. And that can be used for sound cleansing as well as signaling the beginning and end of a ritual. So that is just something that a lot of witches use in their practices, which I think is really cool. The next thing are elemental representations. So some people, I've seen like altar tiles that are representations, like the triangular, like up and down, the line through them, for all of the elements. You can also have water, or like a jug of water, like a cup of water, or bowl, or whatever you might have, earth, a candle for fire, and incense for air. So if that is something that you have, maybe like wind chimes for air even, that is a-okay and awesome. And then also directional markers. So some people have certain candles that they set up that have colors that correspond with the various elements that they set up in the various sections of their altars. Generally speaking, all Wiccan altars will be facing north. Mine, I am not a Wiccan, therefore mine points wherever I want. You do not have to do that either. But generally speaking, if you are a Wiccan, your altar is probably going to be pointing north. So by having a directional marker, even if it's like kind of carved into the side, like a little N, or like you can make it a rune or something, that would be cool. So that way you know like which side of the altar is facing north, so in case it gets bumped or whatever, that is something that you can do. And it's just kind of like a cool thing. I don't know. But yeah, I tend to change my working altar like all the time. So at any given time, I have a combination of any of the things I've spoken about today. I would love to hear more about how you set up your altar. If you do share pictures on Instagram and like would like me to see it, just make sure you tag me. And I will totally just be like, yeah, awesome. And like maybe try to share it on my stories and stuff if that is okay. But I would love to see your guys' altars and how they look. But this is kind of like what I'm working with right now. And yeah, I'll show you guys how I am building my new, I've redesigned it a little bit, my new Hecatean altar tomorrow. So I will see you then. Bye.